Hello, everyone. So today I'm going to recap White Lotus Season 3, Episode 2, Special Treatments. All right, I have a confession to make. I don't think I'm liking this season of White Lotus. In past seasons, I was literally cracking up, but this season just feels bland to me. There's a lot of spoken exposition that feels wonky, and the characters just aren't funny. A lot of people are going to say this is because Tanya is no longer a cast member, but to be honest, Tanya was not the core reason I was watching White Lotus seasons 1 and 2. She was a standout as comedic relief, but the other characters in past seasons were entertaining on their own and were never reliant on Tanya for intrigue or character development. Like, Walter Goggins is in this cast, and somehow he plays the most boring character. It's Walter Goggins. Sure, his character is a depressed bore, but depressed bores can also be written funny. This is why sometimes limited series need to remain just that, limited. And yes, I know it's only 2 episodes in, but we've seen Mike White establish tone of character a lot better in previous seasons. So the lag we're experiencing now may be cause for concern, because if I'm not invested in these characters in episode 2, in I needed to look this up, an 8-10 episode season, I think we are at a little bit of a standstill. Anyway, maybe future episodes will prove me wrong, but without further ado, let's get into this recap. The episode begins where the last episode left off. Jacqueline and Kate are in their suite talking about Lori. We learn that Lori lives in New York City, is some corporate executive for some firm, and she also has recently got divorced. Apparently, she was the main breadwinner in her marriage, so upon divorce, she was forced to pay her ex-husband palimony. Lori has a daughter named Ellie who seems to be elementary school age and has been kicked out of 2 schools for hitting other children. Kate is against children being raised in New York City, which, as somebody currently living in New York City, is something that I hear a lot. And it appears that Jacqueline and Kate hold very conservative ideals on what a woman should be and where women should be raised. Because in my humble estimation, I'm just going to say this, making enough money to be forced to pay palimony means Lori is making good money, especially in New York City. So palimony is above what you would get for the cost of living. So if she's able to live comfortably in New York City, like the court deems her able to live comfortably in New York City and then also pay palimony, it means she's making pretty good money. Even if she didn't get that promotion that she wanted, which is alluded to by Kate, I think the average person would consider Lori successful. We will later learn that Kate is willing to even throw Jacqueline under the bus under the right conditions. So maybe these are just the way that people talk. And I think what the show is trying to highlight is that when people have the opportunity to be nasty and gossip, particularly women, but I think quite frankly, it's across all genders, they will. And we see that with these 3 quote unquote friends who are clearly using any opportunity they have to downgrade their peers. Okay, so Lori interrupts their conversation by banging on the glass door to get her charger. The women lie about the substance of their conversation with her. They say they miss her and they're excited to spend time with her, even though they were just kind of being nasty about the circumstances of her life. My theory is that all these women are lonely freaks, and hopefully they come to the realization that they're probably all in the same boat and they just need to kind of be honest with each other and just love on each other. But of course, that is going to be a very chaotic revelation, I assume, in regular Mike White fashion. At breakfast, after establishing that the rat lifts are weird, Valentine tells the woman about their upcoming biomarker test. The women imply that Lori should pursue Valentine sexually since she is single. They vaguely reference like something related to Cancun. So even though these women don't see each other often, apparently Jacqueline hasn't seen Lori in 4 years. There was some vacation in Cancun that went out of whack. So we'll see if that comes up in future episodes. Valentine tells Lori that her biomarker numbers could be of a woman half her age. He is clearly giving her a speech he has given hundreds of times before, because people don't tend to have a good time on vacation when they're told their body is about to collapse from stress and other ailments. At the beach, the girls discover that Valentine may be giving them the runaround. Jacqueline is a little too surprised that she got the same speech as Lori. While I want to determine who is the worst amongst these 3, I think they're all equally nasty, and Jacqueline just has a bit of a superiority complex, which granted, I might also feel that way if I'm the one paying for this whole entire vacation. Anyway, we learned that Jacqueline is married to a man 10 years younger than her, and they have been only married for about a year. Fabian then at dinner addresses the woman and makes an awkward conversation about one day performing for the guests. Unlike Valentina from season 2 and Armand in season 1, I just don't think Fabian is hitting as a manager. I don't know what his role is here, but in both seasons 1 and 2, the managers had a much larger role already. So I wonder if Fabian is just a manager that is going to take a little bit of a back seat. And my theory is that Sritala is actually the manager character in this season, but we'll have to wait and see. After dinner, Jacqueline skims through Shatala's book, which seems to be entirely in Thai. Lori and Kate are given a moment to themselves and they gossip about Jacqueline's relationship to her new husband. Lori calls Jacqueline a narcissist and Kate agrees. Kate then says that Jacqueline sandblasted her face, which is an absolutely insane thing to say. They are both skeptical about Jacqueline's marriage because it seems like the couple are hardly in the same city. It seems like Jacqueline might have overheard part of their conversation, so she might address that later. Let's go to the weirdo freaks that are the Ratliff family. We see that the Ratliff family is wake up and we're assaulted by this visage of Saxon's bare ass. In my humble estimation, I just think it's kind of imagery. I find it difficult to believe that this is supposed to be some sexual awakening for Lachlan. Although we learn that he has his own weird ways later, I just think that there are people in society who do go to sleep naked, and it wouldn't be that surprising for brothers to see each other naked. I just feel like there's a lot of shock imagery with Saxon because there isn't that much substance in the show elsewise. And this is me being rude, but yeah, I don't know if there's much there. But yeah, let's get into it. In their bedroom, Victoria is dead asleep. Clearly, those pills knocked her out. And Tim is anxious about his phone notifications due to the impending Wall Street Journal article. At breakfast, we learn that Saxon takes Adderalls and steroids, which again might be relevant to a plot later. Kate introduces herself to Victoria after remembering that they spent a whole weekend together at a baby shower. Victoria does not seem to remember at all, and she's very standoffish. But maybe it's just the drugs that caused her to forget. Another theory I have is there may be something in her past that she's intentionally tried to avoid because she seems just a little bit too cognizant at the same time. Like she knows she's being standoffish. Somebody who's just drug induced, she might still be kind of nice. But I think Victoria was clearly not having any of this conversation, and I wonder why and what she's avoiding. Also, I noticed that Miss Victoria has a widow's peak, which I always just think is cute. I just noticed that right now from Parker Posey. So yeah, I think it's really nice and beautiful. Anyway, when her children call out her for being rude, Victoria dismisses them and calls all actresses prostitutes. So she's clearly using deflecting behavior in order to kind of avoid them from recognizing how weird that interaction was. The Ratcliffe schedule includes a massage for Victoria, a sports massage for Saxon, a sensory deprivation cake for Lachlan, and a yoga session for Piper. Tim has opted not to participate in any sessions to ensure he's available by the phone if needed. Victoria takes pills before her massage, clearly again an indication of some form of dependency since a massage is supposed to be what relaxes you. Saxon assumes that his massage includes a happy ending, which means he becomes erect at the first touch from the massage therapist. At yoga, an older man tries to flirt with Piper, and Lachlan clearly is bored in that deprivation tank. Tim learns that the other news publications are reaching out to him for comment, which of course increases Tim's stress. While Victoria is ordering snacks for the family, we see Saxon angrily opening and closing cabinets. There's a cool moment when we see Victoria seem to perfectly speak Thai, and I think this is a hint to show that Victoria is a lot smarter than she puts on, which makes sense. She went to UNC Chapel Hill, so maybe the drugs are just a way for her to numb the part of her brain that seeks to be more than a housewife, but I may just be projecting there. Anyway, we learned that Saxon is looking for a blender for his protein shakes, which as a protein shake drinker, I don't think the blender is necessary. Anyway, Saxon explicitly tells his family he was dissatisfied with his massage because there was no happy ending. It's just so weird and it's really inappropriate. I'm just so confused about where they're going to take this in terms of Saxon being a sex pest. Like, this is so far out of bounds with appropriateness. And I know that Mike White likes to play with that, but Saxon just seems like a character that is genuinely a danger to other people. Like, becoming erect at your massage therapist is a very, it's a scary moment for the massage therapist. And I think that it's something that could be on the boundary. I think it is a sexual harassment to an extent. So, especially since we learned that Saxon has that expectation. So, I don't know what's going on with this family, but as a lot of people have mentioned on the internet, they're not really funny to me. They're just scary to me. Like, they give me a lot of anxiety. I have no idea what the fuck is going to happen. And I think everything that could happen is really frightening. Anyway, Piper, fortunately, is the only slightly normal person in this family. He's rightfully creeped out by what Saxon says. At the beach, Lachlan joins Piper at the ocean hammocks, which seem really cool, which I would want to visit myself. And Lachlan tells Piper about his failed attempts to pray and then dismisses her assertion that she feels a presence. Lachlan then brings up the fact that Saxon said that Piper never had sex, and Piper is like, yeah, bro, what the F? And that is what she should have said. Again, just happy there's at least one slightly normal person in this family. It feels like Lachlan is adopting Saxon's attitude on life, and it's just also inappropriate. Again, I don't know what the end game of this is, but I hope that Mike White ends up tying this with a bow that makes sense. I hope it's just not some shock jock sort of thing, which I'm kind of feeling like it's going in right now, but we will have to wait and see. Okay, at dinner, the family discussed the gender identity of the woman that served them. Piper does not appreciate Saxon's sexual jokes about the woman and makes reference to his comments about her sexual life. Victoria explains that family is needed, and she mentioned how she hated her brother, who used to bully her, but now they are close. So that might be foreshadowing about how these siblings will end up by the end of this vacation. Tim finally gets on the phone with Kenny, who tells Tim that he's been raided by the FBI. A whistleblower ratted Kenny out, and Tim is anxious that he may be criminally implicated as well. The relationship is very tense, but I thought it was kind of cool that Kenny at least gave him a heads up. Apparently they're involved in some sort of money laundering bribe situation. People have pointed out that the voice is Ki Hui Kwan. Oh my god, I know I'm pronouncing that wrong. But you know, the homie from Goonies and Everything Everywhere All at Once. So I hope we get to see him if he is in fact cast as Kenny, because that would be super cool. Anyway, Guy Talk listened and overheard the entire conversation with Timothy, so I wonder if Guy Talk is going to use the intel about Tim in later episodes. Tim calls a lawyer, but due to the time difference, can't get in contact with the lawyer live. Okay, Lachlan tells a foreboding story as they're going to sleep about people not listening to some little girl who sees that there is a sign of a tsunami. And so I think a future episode will involve somebody trying to warn everybody about something and people not listening. All right, let's get to the next people, which is Rick and Chelsea and Chloe and Gary. All right, so I just decided to include Chloe and Gary since clearly they're going to be a huge part of the plot moving forward. So Mook greets Chelsea and Rick at breakfast to discuss their treatments for the day. Although Rick is reluctant for the stress management session with Amrita, he ultimately agrees because no refund is available for these special sessions. Chelsea tells Rick that Chelsea accepted dinner with Chloe and Gary, which again makes Rick upset, but he ultimately agrees to go. During her massage, Chelsea mentioned an Enneagram personality test, which I had to Google, which is interesting. I think that the show's trying to comment a little bit about how people use going to the East or Thailand specifically to, like, you know, bring out all the hoodoo voodoo when it comes to personality tests and wellness. So I think that's why Enneagram personality was brought up. But I wonder if this was also used in how Mike White created the characters for this cast. Anyway, at the stress management session, Rick tells Amrita about how his mother died of a drug overdose when he was 10 years old, and how he never knew his father because his father was murdered before Rick was born. We learn that Rick sees himself as nothing, so this might provide a little bit more motivation as to why Rick really needs to see Shri Taler's husband, Jim Hollinger. Anyway, at lunch, Rick is again mean to Chelsea. Chloe stops to hang out with Chelsea, and they go to the beach. At the beach, Saxon tries to rizz up Chelsea and Chloe, but Chelsea clocks him and the rack lifts as wankers. Anyway, Chloe invites Chelsea to the hotel clothing shop where there is an armed robbery. The robber seems to have an American accent, so I do wonder if this robber is Rick, which is why he is so nonchalant later when he says Chelsea wouldn't have died. Also, this is why we see that lingering scene of Rick comforting Chelsea. and that will be a pretty good alibi. Anyway, at dinner, Chloe is more worried about missing out on the action than Chelsea's safety. We learn that because of the robbery, Rick and Chloe's room has been comped, which is probably something that Rick needs. Rick tries to start a conversation with Gary, who's closed off and vague about his prior occupation of this and that, likely because Gary is a professional scammer. I don't even think he had a job when he met Tanya. He was talking about how he's a part of the BLM. He wasn't a part of shit. Anyway, Gary and Chloe that say they met through a Dubai matchmaking service. Gary incorrectly calls Chloe French, but she's in fact Quebecois. And as somebody who is of like French Francophone background, this is a very important distinction to make. Like very, very important to make. They are not the same at all. The French do not look kindly upon the Quebecois. Anyway, Chelsea and Rick clearly enjoy the fact that they are not the worst couple at the table. Shritala says that she's going to Bangkok and Rick overhears. Rick tells Chelsea that he is going to Bangkok for the next 2 days. And despite all their bickering and clear incompatibility, in my humble opinion, they have sex and that is the last we see of them. So next we go to a couple that we see a little bit more of in these upcoming episodes, which is Porn Chai and Belinda. Belinda seems to have formed a very deserved crush on the very handsome Porn Chai. Porn Chai decides to give Belinda his signature treatment, and then later, Belinda would give him her signature treatment. The intent is to learn more about the other's craft. Again, these are people who have been able to attract people to their hotels for their wellness activities, so there is a professional reason for this. Unfortunately, Belinda is very impressed by Porn Chai's warrior treatment, and he gives her one of those life-changing neck cracks. But then Belinda gets to see Mr. Porn Chai in his boxers and is clearly impressed by his body. And at dinner, we get a hint that Belinda may recognize Gary. So let's see if that gets us anywhere. All right, the hotel staff. Guy Talk invites Mook to lunch, which is out of the norm since Mook usually takes lunch with her girlfriends. At lunch, Guy Talk confesses that he likes Mook and makes a case for their relationship based on the fact that they're from the same town and work for the same employer. Mook rebukes his advances and calls it all silly. To be honest, I don't feel too much about this confession. Like in season 2, we see the slow burn of Valentina's crush on her coworker, and I wish they allowed Guy Talk to work up to confessing himself to Mook, since we clearly got those vibes already from episode 1, but at least we get some established motivation for Guy Talk. But I honestly don't think they needed to say this aloud. I don't think, maybe it's like culturally, maybe that's what the show's saying, but I don't think that we needed to say this aloud. It's clear Guy Talk has a crush on Mook, and maybe they just needed to figure out a way to get them into a scene together. But I felt like they should have allowed this to be a slow burn, because I think that would have been cuter. And of course, we get another opportunity for them to connect. Valentine and Guy Talk seem to have a rapport. I saw that some people might imply that Valentine, who is the wellness individual, the Russian man, might have been the one who intentionally distracted Guy Talk for the robber to come in. So we have to wait and see. But Valentine has invited Guy Talk to a fight, so I'm hoping that we get to see them go there. But again, maybe that is another way to distract Guy Talk, who might be the only attentive security guard of this whole entire establishment. Anyway, when that robber's car returns to the security port, Guy Talk tries to subdue the robber, but he's pistol whipped and left on the ground. After work, Mook checks on Guy Talk and says she was worried about him. Guy Talk is clearly encouraged by Mook's concern. At dinner, Shritala gives a great singing performance. At least I loved it. I thought it was really good. She could sing again. Also, I love it when you could tell somebody was just an absolute stunner when they were younger, and Shritala is obviously a man killer. And again, Fabian, don't know what he's doing in the season. The managers tend to do a lot more, but we'll have to wait and see. Like I said, I don't know about this season. The tone is just, I don't know, not there. The humor isn't as prominent as it was in past season, but also this quote unquote seriousness of the season isn't as deep to warrant the lack of comedy. And I can see that there's moments when I'm supposed to quote unquote laugh, but it's just not that effective as it was again in seasons 1 and 2. But let me know what your thoughts are. I'm really excited. I just want to know, because I feel like everyone seems to be really excited about this season. I'm kind of not getting it right now. Maybe future episodes will change that, but you do have one first impression, and now we're at the second first impression, and I'm not impressed. But let me know your thoughts. I hope you have a great night. Thank you for watching this video, and this was Strategic Delusion. Good night.